Okay. Hi, everybody. We'll start here in just a minute. Please be patient. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, do your spiels, kids. Here, I'll turn mine off while you turn them on.
Yes.
There you go.
This thing on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, it's so good to see all these faces. It's been 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years. I can't
Scary.
believe it. Anyway, thank you so much for coming to see Bradley. How many years has it been?
15.
15 years.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Pam, I'm the manager, and I want to welcome you here to our wonderfully lovely festive bookstore. We've been here for 122 years, 123 years in January. And thank you for supporting us. Sorry, I just ran up the stairs. I'm a little out of breath. I just want to give you a heads up about 2 events that are coming up this week. One is tomorrow night, Thursday, December 7th at 6. The 7 Seattle-based authors of the poetry and essay collection Writing While Masked will join us for a group meeting and signing. This is their last appearance together before several members of the group move away. So it's a great time to rally behind the local writers. And then Saturday, Santa will be here.
He's
at
such a good
2,
Santa.
with a kids' story time. So join us at 2 for a celebration, holiday cheer, and an afternoon of stories with Santa. One of my particular favorites.
Yeah.
He is a great Santa, by the
He
way.
really is. He did offer me work once years ago. I was like,
I don't know why.
I don't know why. But
Anyway,
no, he's so
Brad,
much better than me. He really, beautiful beard.
he is wonderful.
Yeah.
Anyway, take it away, Brad.
Thank you, honey. Did I turn it on? I turned it on. Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi. So yeah, 15 years. And this year I have a new little book. It's called Plates, A Christmas Concatenation. And yes, I picked a word like that because I know that you'll have to look it up. It means basically a collection, and it's often in reference to food, a collection of disparate things linked by an occasion or some particular element. And that's kind of what they are. A lot of them are essays that I used as either an introduction or as an encore for this reading. So you may be familiar with some of them. And it also has little short stories that I wrote because my friend Elizabeth for years was putting up really quirky, sort of antique Christmas photos from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I started writing rather vicious little captions for them. And when I was looking up all the Christmas stuff I had, it turns out I had a bunch of those. And I thought, well, I wonder if they can stand alone. And they made me smile and laugh even without the pictures. So hopefully they'll make you smile too. But anyway, that's that. And the first thing I'm going to read before we do Truman Capote is from that collection. And it's called 7-Up Salad is Real Good. Just so you know. Now, you may not be acquainted with what that is, but I hopefully will explain it. 7-Up Salad is real good. Really, that should be enough for you people, that the fat guy endorsed it. But I understand your hesitation. It's true that nothing served at the Christmas dinners of my childhood would fit any recognizable definition of that word, salad. From the old French salade, raw herbs cut up and variously dressed, deriving from the Latin sal for salt. So, no. These were sweet salads we ate, though not as desserts. And they all start with flavored gelatin. Lime, orange, yellow, red. The worst ones, the ones people remember with a shiver, had shredded carrots in them, or worse, canned peas. I still remember putting my first foot wrong at my very first bourgeois dinner party when I referred to the elaborate aspic dish as Jell-O salad. The hostess, she was not amused. The good Jell-O salads, the best ones, were layered. Fruited Jell-O, then cream cheese or whipped topping, nuts or candied orange rind. Some even had cottage cheese. The 7-Up salad was the queen among the peasants. Lime or lemon Jell-O made with soda pop instead of water, mixed with crushed pineapple, then a layer of something. Pistachio pudding mix? I don't know. Mixed with whipped cream. That sounds wrong. Anyway, crowned with a layer of cream cheese mixed with pineapple juice and sprinkled with chopped walnuts. Kind of what I remember anyway. Something like that. I don't know the actual recipe, so sue me, it's been years. If you didn't grow up eating Jell-O salads, that may not sound very good to you. It is, but nobody's going to make you eat it. I don't think people should be made to eat anything after the age of 12. I also think that you should eat what's put in front of you or not eat at all. Old school, as they say. I have, for example, been to a number of what I'd call hippie dinners. Again, you may not be familiar, so I'll explain. This sort of thing could put one right off one's brown rice, but these were meals prepared by very evolved persons who evidently felt that salt was somehow a tool of the oppressor, and a spice rack a sure sign of selling out to the man. As unlikely as it may seem now, there was a time when nearly all of my friends seemed to have either braids or a mustache, or braids and a mustache, men and women. Even then, I drew the line at braided mustaches. They washed, but did not peel their carrots. You lose all the vitamins, man. Quoth one such committed soul. They were also obsessed with lentils, the hippies. In a world full of delicious legumes, this reliance on just the one humble brown bean always seemed to me punishing. Lentils in a bowl. Lentils inexplicably with rice. And most to be dreaded, the lightly seasoned cold lentil salad. These people never seem to have heard of lemon, let alone crumbled feta. Long before it became a widely accepted, if still much mistaken practice, hippies thought kale should be chewed raw, and chewed, and chewed. For some, mastication for its own sake would seem to have been both penance and a pleasure. Inexplicable to me. Nevertheless, if even that sad dish of tepid lentils was laid before me, I ate them. As my mother would doubtless say, you should have left before their supper time. Eating other people's food was frowned upon when I was a child. This was not xenophobic. Other people where I grew up were still largely the same ethnically uninteresting people as my relatives. No, the issue wasn't that other people made odd meals, but rather that it was impolite to linger while visiting, and in so doing reduce the stock of available victuals for folks who may not have enough. Get it? Kids, of course, cannot tell time until they are at least 21. So I did eat at other families' tables. The only unfamiliarity I remember was the shocking idea that other people's mothers could not cook. Not that they didn't, mind you, but simply that some weren't very good at it. Once bitten, twice shy, you'd think, wouldn't you? Remember, though, couldn't tell time, especially on long summer days. So yes, I ate unbuttered corn on the cob more than once. Barbarous. And mashed potatoes made without milk. Thoughtless. And green tomatoes neither breaded nor fried in deep grease. Some people are just animals. Perhaps the most shocking thing I ever saw growing up wasn't the box of sex toys in a family's parents, deeply religious family, once showed me in his parents' bedroom, but watching someone's mother actually weighing out each portion appropriate to each diner according to age and size. She actually trimmed the chop to the correct child size for a 9-year-old. She subtracted peas until she had the measure she intended. She used an actual kitchen scale, no lie. Science. I could not have been more horrified if we had been served my friend's little brother roasted. Presumably, she would have been careful to trim the fat. A nice, juicy baby arm, but just to the elbow for you, little man. I, of course, could not tell my mother this story for years, as her only response would have been to tell me that I shouldn't have been there at that hour. or in the woman's kitchen when she was trying to make a meal. When I did finally tell Mum about that lady's kitchen scale, my mother thought a minute and then said, "Well, now, maybe she had the right idea. None of them was fat." I waited out the pause before she added, "Them poor kids." The working class corollary to not being caught at other people's supper time was, of course, to feed any and everyone within the sound of my mother's voice. You could hide, but she'd find you. Telling her you weren't hungry was like telling her your parents were too poor to feed you, or you had undiagnosed childhood leukemia. "Are you sick, honey? I could make you some soup." I have seen the woman all but wrestle grown men out of their moving pickups in order to feed them, whether they wanted to eat or not. Food is love, in case you missed that memo. Don't know how many times people came to our table unannounced, but no one ever left hungry. Money was often tight in my father's house, and my mother was not above pretending that she'd never intended to eat that delicious pork chop herself, that she'd tasted too much as she cooked and was already full. Also, she would not hesitate to snatch one of her own children back into the kitchen and tell him or her that for tonight they did not like roast beef, and she'd made them extra mashed potatoes, or just eat what you got and do not say a word, do you hear? There was always good bread and butter if you were still hungry, eat that. Now, every family has just the one agreed upon potato salad person. And if you disagree, not only are you probably wrong, you will clearly never be that person. So give it up. So you saw this new recipe in a magazine, did you? Well, you take that right back to the car. Nobody wants to eat that mess, baby. Likewise, there is always the woman who did Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving usually. Just the way it worked. It wasn't fair. Nobody voted. I'm sure there were good reasons, but usually, whoever she was the best cook. Nobody would say such a thing out loud, but you knew. Why? Well, other people might have bigger dining rooms, for instance, or a newer stove, or an actual bar in the family room. And yet every year, everybody came to eat in the same little house, half of them on TV trays in the living room, and all the kids in the kitchen. In my family, this woman was my mother. I was glad of that, even if her sister-in-law wasn't happy or an aunt complained. Nobody cares about your nice new china going to waste. Your turkey's dry, and that green bean casserole is disgusting, whatever you serve it in, so go cry in your beer. Your third beer, by the way. People noticed. My grandmothers were both good cooks. My mother is a good cook. My sister and my sister-in-law are good cooks. So's my husband. So's my brother. I've been lucky. Mom made Thanksgiving and Christmas for years because objectively, she made the best Thanksgiving and Christmas. Simple as that. People helped or they didn't. Other people brought dishes we either ate or did not. Every year, my mother made the family holiday meal, even when she was cleaning other people's houses or college dorm rooms, even when she was nursing old people or so exhausted she cried mashing the potatoes. Whipped, actually, using an electric hand mixer with real milk, salt, pepper, and enough real butter to grease a runway, exactly as one is supposed to do. There are only 3 excuses for lumpy mashed potatoes. 1, it is 1848 and no one has electricity yet. 2, there is an actual gun to your head. Or 3, you are in some fancy postmodern steakhouse preoccupied with some inauthentic idea of rusticality, in which case both you and the fancy pants chef are probably douches. My grandmas cooked the holiday meals until they didn't anymore, and my mother did. My sister-in-law now makes my mother's Christmas dinner. My sister-in-law was for many years a cook and a baker in good restaurants. My brother's a lucky man, too. Anyone who cooks Christmas dinner for an extended family is a hero. For years, my husband cooked a full Thanksgiving crew of mostly gay men, then a few, then a couple, and then just us. Year before last, we actually ordered from a very fancy joint, and it was just shit, and really expensive shit at that. I wrote a stern email. And I sent it because I'm a hard ass like that. Christmas was usually less of a thing with us. He was raised Jehovah's Witness, or as he called it before, the only black church with bad music. And the witnesses don't do Christmas. He also worked in the USPS for decades, specifically in facilities processing packages, and I work in retail. That sort of thing can wear down the good cheer of even the jolliest of old elves. Christmas at our house tends to be quiet by choice. My husband's full Thanksgiving menu ran as follows: roasted turkey, oyster stuffing, giblet gravy, homemade mac and cheese. If you are white, please consult a black person. Greens with ham hocks, sweet potato casserole, no marshmallows because we just... Dinner rolls from scratch, canned cranberry sauce because it turned out we missed it, and sweet potato pie. And when the cooking and the eating were done, please enjoy a rum and Coke. Yes, even if you had wine with dinner. Also, buy the good liquor, people. What are we, teenagers? My late friend Peter told me once that if you plan to drink other than alone when in a liquor store, it should hurt a little when you get to the cash register, or you're doing it wrong. After a meal like that, after decades of meals like that, I can't say I much miss the 7-Up salad. The year I moved in with my beloved was also the last year I spent Christmas with my family. He is my family now. Took a good 25 years for everybody else to catch up with us. It takes the time it takes, children. I'm pretty sure that at least once after that first Christmas we could call our own because we had to, my mother made 7-Up salad for me when I visited. Haven't had it since. Like many warmly remembered things, those cold salads might not have the same charm that I remember. Bought a tub of that whipped topping we all loved back in the day, and not just for the reusable plastic container. Tasted the stuff on some fresh strawberries, didn't care for it at all. Kept the container though. Maybe this makes that simpler. I know that 7-Up salad was good, whether I might eat it now or not. Lots of things like that. Comic books, The Wonderful World of Disney, county fairs, roller coasters, Republican neighbors, banana bikes on hot asphalt. Doesn't mean that those things altogether cease to be good or that people who don't enjoy them still. Really, what's changed is me, my palate. Pardon me. My appreciation of hot weather and cold weather, my tolerance for company and crowds, what I want for Christmas, that's what's different now. Reminded of this, I find I am not unmoved by the inexorable grinding of time. Can't regret it, does no good. Time's like teeth. As you get older, you just get more grateful for what you still have. Simply put, I do not feel I have the time to spend regretting or recreating my childhood. What was good, I try to remember. What wasn't, I try to forget. 7-Up salad was good. End of story. I still love Christmas, still watch the same movies, listen to all the music, reread the great stories. That is the best thing about art. Unlike us, unlike food and fashion, and our ever more fragile republic, art endures. Dickens' carol can be counted upon. Marilyn Horne singing "O Come All Ye Faithful" with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Johnny Mathis in a red sweater singing anything. Alistair Sim, Rankin Bass, The Grinch. These are all things one need not love because of what they were to us once, though we do, I do, but because they are still good of themselves, like my husband's gravy. All but the gravy will outlast me. Blame the gravy. And that is a very good thing indeed. That is why a good book is even better than a good dinner. Doesn't mean one shouldn't have both. Try to, anyway. Try the aspic. And try the Jell-O salads. Not the one with carrot shavings or canned peas. That shit's just nasty. So cursy this year.
When was that written?
Sorry about that. What's that?
When was that written?
Oh, I don't know. A bit ago, but it's in the little white book. So
The plates book?
yeah, the plate book. And so then, without further ado, the main feature of this evening, which is Truman Capote's A Christmas Memory. Get my backup water. Imagine a morning in late November, a coming of winter morning more than 20 years ago. Consider the kitchen of a spreading old house in a country town. A great black stove is its main feature, but there is also a big round table and a fireplace with two rocking chairs placed in front of it. Just today, the fireplace commenced its seasonal roar. A woman with shorn white hair is standing at the kitchen window. She is wearing tennis shoes and a shapeless gray sweater over a summery calico dress. She is small and sprightly, like a bantam hen, but due to a long youthful illness, her shoulders are pitifully hunched. Her face is remarkable, not unlike Lincoln's, craggy like that and tinted by sun and wind, but it is delicate too, finely boned, and her eyes are sherry colored and timid. Oh my, she exclaims, her breath smoking the window pane. It's fruitcake weather. The person to whom she is speaking is myself. I am 7. She is 60 something. We are cousins, very distant ones, and we have lived together, well, as long as I can remember. Other people inhabit the house, relatives. And though they have power over us and frequently make us cry, we are not, on the whole, too much aware of them. We are each other's best friend. She calls me Buddy, in memory of a boy who was formerly her best friend. The other Buddy died in the 1880s when she was still a child. She is still a child. I knew it before I got to bed, she says, turning away from the window with a purposeful excitement in her eyes. The courthouse bell sounded so cold and clear, and there were no birds singing. They've gone to warmer country, yes, indeed. Oh, Buddy, stop stuffing biscuit and fetch our buggy. Help me find my hat. We've 30 cakes to bake. It's always the same. A morning arrives in November, and my friend, as though officially inaugurating the Christmas time of year that exhilarates her imagination and fuels the blaze of her heart, announces, It's fruitcake weather. Fetch our buggy. Help me find my hat. The hat is found. A straw cartwheel corsaged with velvet roses out of doors has faded. It once belonged to a more fashionable relative. Together, we guide our buggy, a dilapidated baby carriage, out to the garden and into a grove of pecan trees. The buggy is mine. That is, it was bought for me when I was born. It is made of wicker, rather unraveled, and the wheels wobble like a drunkard's legs. But it is a faithful object. Springtimes, we take it to the woods and fill it with flowers, herbs, wild fern for our porch pots. In the summer, we pile it with picnic paraphernalia and sugarcane fishing poles and roll it down to the edge of a creek. It has its winter uses too, as a truck for hauling firewood from the yard to the kitchen, as a warm bed for Queenie, our tough little orange and white rat terrier, who has survived distemper and 2 rattlesnake bites. Queenie is trotting beside it now. 3 hours later, we are back in the kitchen, hulling a heaping buggy load of windfall pecans. Our backs hurt from gathering them. How hard they were to find, the main crop having been shaken off the trees and sold by the orchard's owners, who are not us, among the concealing leaves, the frosted, deceiving grass. Crackle, a cheery crunch. Scraps of miniature thunder sound as the shells collapse and the golden mound of sweet, oily, ivory meat mounts in the milk glass bowl. Queenie begs to taste, and now and again my friend sneaks her a mite, though insisting we deprive ourselves. We mustn't, buddy. If we start, we won't stop. And there's scarcely enough as it is for 30 cakes. The kitchen is growing dark. Dusk turns the window into a mirror. Our reflections mingle with the rising moon as we work by the fireside in the firelight. At last, when the moon is quite high, we toss the final hull into the fire and with joined sighs watch it catch flame. The buggy is empty. The bowl is brim full. We eat our supper, cold biscuits, bacon, blackberry jam, and discuss tomorrow. Tomorrow, the kind of work I like best begins. Buying. Cherries and citron, ginger and vanilla, and canned Hawaiian pineapple, rinds and raisins and walnuts and whiskey, and oh, so much flour, butter, so many eggs, spices, flavorings. Why, we'll need a pony to pull the buggy home. But before these purchases can be made, there is a question has any. Except for skinflint sums persons in the house occasionally provide, a dime is considered very big money, and what we earn ourselves from various activities, holding rummage sales, selling buckets of hand-picked blackberries, jars of homemade jam and apple jelly and peach preserves, rounding up flowers for funerals and weddings. Once, we won 75th prize, $5, in a national football contest. Not that we know a fool thing about football. It's just that we enter any contest we hear about. At the moment, our hopes are centered on the $50,000 grand prize being offered to name a new brand of coffee. We suggested AM, and after some hesitation, for my friend thought it perhaps sacrilegious, the slogan AM, Amen. To tell the truth, our only really profitable enterprise was the Fun and Freak Museum we conducted in the backyard woodshed 2 summers ago. The Fun was a stereopticon with slide views of Washington and New York, lent us by a relative who had been to those places. She was furious when she discovered why we borrowed it. And the Freak was a 3-legged bitty chicken hatched by one of our own hens. Everybody hereabouts wanted to see that bitty. We charged grown-ups a nickel, kids 2 cents. A good $20 before the museum shut down due to the decease of the main attraction. But one way and another, we do each year accumulate Christmas savings, a fruitcake fund. These monies we keep hidden in an ancient bead purse, under a loose board, under the floor, under a chamber pot, under my friend's bed. The purse is seldom removed from this safe location, except to make a deposit or, perhaps, as happens every Saturday, a withdrawal. For on Saturdays, I am allowed 10 cents to go to the picture show. My friend has never been to a picture show, nor does she intend to. I'd rather hear you tell the story, buddy. That way I can imagine it more. Besides, a person my age shouldn't squander their eyes. When the Lord comes, I want to see him clear. In addition to never having seen a movie, she has never eaten in a restaurant, traveled more than 5 miles from home, received or sent a telegram, read anything except the funny papers in the Bible, worn cosmetics, cursed, wished someone harm, told a lie on purpose, let a hungry dog go hungry. Here are a few things she has done, does do. Killed with a hoe the biggest rattlesnake ever seen in this county, 16 rattles. Dip snuff secretly. Tame hummingbirds, just try it, till they balance on her finger. Tell ghost stories, we both believe in ghosts, so tingly they will chill you in July. Talk to herself, take walks in the rain, grow the prettiest japonicas in town. Know the recipe for every sort of old-time Indian cure, including a magical wart remover. Now, with supper finished, we retire to the room in a faraway part of the house where my friend sleeps in a scrap quilt-covered iron bed, painted rose pink, her favorite color. Silently, wallowing in the pleasures of conspiracy, we take the bead purse from its secret place and spill its contents onto the scrap quilt. Dollar bills tightly rolled and green as May buds. Somber 50-cent pieces, heavy enough to weight a dead man's eyes. Lovely dimes, the liveliest coin, the one that really jingles. Nickels and quarters worn smooth as creek pebbles. But mostly a hateful heap of bitter-odored pennies. Last summer, others in the house contracted to pay us a penny for every 25 flies we killed. Oh, the carnage of August! The flies that flew to heaven. Yet it was not work in which we took pride. And as we sit counting pennies, it is as though we were back tabulating dead flies. Neither of us has a head for figures. We count slowly, lose track, start again. According to her calculations, we have $12.73. According to mine, exactly $13. I do hope you're wrong, buddy. We can't mess around with 13. The cakes will fall. Or put somebody in the cemetery. Why, I wouldn't dream of getting out of bed on the 13th. This is true. She always spends 13ths in bed. So, to be on the safe side, we subtract a penny and toss it out the window. Of the ingredients that go into our fruitcakes, whiskey is the most expensive, as well as the hardest to obtain. State laws forbid its sale. But everybody knows you could buy a bottle from Mr. Ha Ha Jones. And the next day, having completed our more prosaic shopping, we set out for Mr. Ha Ha's business address, a sinful, to quote public opinion, fish fry and dancing cafe down by the river. We've been there before and on the same errand, but in previous years, our dealings have been with Ha Ha's wife, an iodine dark Indian woman with brassy peroxided hair and a dead, tired disposition. Actually, we've never laid eyes on her husband, though we've heard that he's an Indian too, a giant with razor scars across his cheeks. They call him Ha Ha because he's so gloomy, a man who never laughs. As we approach his cafe, a large log cabin festooned inside and out with chains of garish, gay, naked light bulbs, and standing by the river's muddy edge under the shade of river trees where moss drifts through the branches like gray mist, our steps slow down. Even Queenie stops prancing and sticks close by. People have been murdered at Ha Ha's cafe. Cut to pieces, hit on the head. There's a case coming up in court next month. Naturally, these goings-on happen at night when the colored lights cast crazy patterns and the Victrola wails. In the daytime, Ha Ha's is shabby and deserted. I knock at the door. Queenie barks. My friend calls. Mrs. Ha Ha, ma'am? Anyone to home? Footsteps. The door opens. Hearts overturned. It's Mr. Ha Ha Jones himself, and he is a giant, and he does have scars, and he doesn't smile. No, he glowers at us through Satan-tilted eyes and demands to know what you want with Ha Ha. For a moment, we're too paralyzed to tell. Presently, my friend half finds her voice, a whispery voice at best. If you please, Mr. Ha Ha, we'd like a quart of your finest whiskey. His eyes tilt more. Would you believe it? Ha Ha is smiling, laughing too. Which one of you's a drinking man? It's for making fruitcakes, Mr. Ha Ha. Cooking. This sobers him. He frowns. That's no way to waste good whiskey. Nevertheless, he retreats into the shadowed cafe, and seconds later appears carrying a bottle of daisy yellow unlabeled liquor. He demonstrates its sparkle in the sunlight and says, $2. We pay him with nickels and dimes and pennies. Suddenly, as he jangles the coin in his hand like a fistful of dice, his face softens. Tell you what, he proposes, pouring the money back into our beaded purse. Just send me one of them fruitcakes instead. Well, my friend remarks on our way home, there's a lovely man. We'll put an extra cup of raisins in his cake. The black stove, stoked with coal and firewood, glows like a lighted pumpkin. Egg beaters whirl, spoons spin in bowls of butter and sugar. Vanilla sweetens the air, ginger spices it. Melting, nose-tingling odors saturate the kitchen, suffuse the house, drift out to the world on puffs of chimney smoke. In 4 days, our work is done. 31 cakes, dampened with whiskey, bask on windowsills and shelves. Who are they for? Friends. Not necessarily neighbor friends. Indeed, the larger share is intended for persons we've met maybe once, perhaps not at all. People who've struck our fancy, like President Roosevelt, like the Reverend and Mrs. J.C. Lucy, Baptist missionaries to Borneo who lectured here last winter, or the little knife grinder who comes through town twice a year, or Abner Packer, the driver of the 6 o'clock bus from Mobile, who exchanges waves with us every day as he passes in a dust cloud whoosh. Or the young Wistons, California couple whose car one afternoon broke down outside the house and who spent a pleasant hour chatting with us on the porch. Young Mr. Whiston snapped our picture, the only one we've ever had taken. It is because my friend is shy with everyone except strangers that these strangers and merest acquaintances seem to us our truest friends? I think yes. Also, the scrapbooks we keep of thank yous on White House stationery, time to time communications from California and Borneo, the knife grinder's penny postcards, make us feel connected to eventful worlds beyond the kitchen with the view of a sky that stops. Now, a nude December fig branch grates against the window. The kitchen is empty. The cakes are gone. Yesterday, we carted the last of them to the post office, where the cost of stamps turned our purse inside out. We're broke. That rather depresses me, but my friend insists on celebrating with 2 inches of whiskey left in Ha-Ha's bottle. Queenie has a spoonful in a bowl of coffee. She likes her coffee chicory flavored and strong. The rest we divide between a pair of jelly glasses. We are both quite prospect of drinking straight whiskey. The taste of it brings screwed up expressions and sour shudders. But by and by, we begin to sing. The two of us singing different songs simultaneously. I don't know the words to mine, just come on along to the duck 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 duck. But I can dance, and that's what I mean to be a tap dancer in the movies. My dancing shadow rollicks on the walls. Our voices rock the chinaware. We giggle as if unseen hands were tickling us. Queenie rolls on her back. Her paws plow the air. Something like a grin stretches her black lips. Inside myself, I feel warm and sparky as those crumbling logs, carefree as the wind in the chimney. My friend waltzes round the stove, the hem of her poor calico skirt pinched between her fingers as though it were a party dress. Show me the way to go home, she sings, her tennis shoes squeaking on the floor. Show me the way to go home. Enter 2 relatives, very angry, potent with eyes that scold, tongues that scald. Listen to what they have to say, the words tumbling together in a wrathful tune. A child of 7, whiskey on his breath. Are you out of your mind? Feeding a child of 7 must be loony. Road to ruination. Remember Cousin Kate, Uncle Charlie's brother-in-law. Shame, scandal, humiliation. Kneel, pray, beg the Lord. Queenie sneaks under the stove. My friend gazes at her shoes. Her chin quivers. She lifts her skirt and blows her nose and runs to her room. Long after the town has gone to sleep, and the house is silent except for the chimings of clocks and the sputter of fading fires, she is weeping into a pillow already as wet as a widow's handkerchief. "Don't cry," I say, sitting at the bottom of her bed and shivering despite my flannel nightgown that smells of last winter's cough syrup. "Don't cry," I beg, teasing her toes, tickling her feet. "You're too old for that." "It's because," she hiccups, "I am too old. Old and funny." "Not funny. Fun. More fun than anybody. Listen, if you don't stop crying, you'll be so tired tomorrow we can't go cut a tree." She straightens up. Queenie jumps on the bed, where Queenie is not allowed, to lick her cheeks. "I know where we'll find pretty trees, buddy. And holly, too, with berries big as your eyes. It's way off in the woods, further than we've ever been. Papa used to bring us Christmas trees from there, carry them on his shoulder. That's 50 years ago. Well, now I can't wait for morning." Morning. Frozen rime lusters on the grass. The sun, round as an orange and orange as hot weather moons, balances on the horizon, burnishes the silver winter woods. A wild turkey calls. A renegade hog grunts in the undergrowth. Soon, by the edge of knee-deep, rapid-running water, we have to abandon the buggy. Queenie wades the stream first, paddles across, barking complaints at the swiftness of the current, the pneumonia-making coldness of it. We follow, holding our shoes and equipment, a hatchet, a burlap sack above our heads. A mile more of chastening thorns, burrs, and briars that catch at our clothes, of rusty pine needles brilliant with gaudy fungus and molted feathers. Here, there, a flash, a flutter, an ecstasy of shrillings remind us that not all the birds have flown south. Always the path unwinds through lemony sun pools and pitch-black vine tunnels. Another creek to cross, a disturbed armada of speckled trout froths the water round us, and frogs the size of plates practice belly flops. Beaver workmen are building a dam. On the further shore, Queenie shakes herself and trembles. My friend shivers too, not with cold, but enthusiasm. One of her hat's ragged roses sheds a petal as she lifts her head and inhales the pine-heavy air. "We're almost there. Can you smell it, buddy?" she says, as though we were approaching an ocean. And indeed, it is a kind of ocean. Scented acres of holiday trees, prickly-leaved holly, red berries shiny as Chinese bells, black crows swoop upon them, screaming. Having stuffed our burlap sacks with enough greenery and crimson to garland a dozen windows, we set about choosing a tree. "It should be," muses my friend, "twice as tall as a boy, so a boy can't steal the star. The one we pick is twice as tall as me. A brave, handsome brute that survives 30 hatchet strokes before it keels with a creaking, rending cry. Lugging it like a kill, we commence the long trek out. 2 yards, we abandon the struggle, sit down, and pant. But we have the strength of triumphant huntsmen. That and the tree's virile, icy perfume revives us, goads us on. Many compliments accompany our sunset return along the red clay road to town. But my friend is shy and sly and non-committal when passers-by praise the treasure perched in our buggy. "What a fine tree, and where did it come from?" "Yonder ways," she murmurs vaguely. Once a car stops, and the rich mill owner's lazy wife leans out and whines, "Gi' you 2 bits cash for that old tray." Ordinarily, my friend is afraid of saying no, but on this occasion, she promptly shakes her head. "We wouldn't take $1." The mill owner's wife persists. "$1, my foot. 50 cents. That's my last offer. Goodness, woman, you can get another one. In answer, my friend gently reflects, I doubt it. There's never two of anything. Home. Queenie slumps by the fire and sleeps till tomorrow, snoring loud as a human. A trunk in the attic contains a shoebox of ermine tails off the opera cape of a curious lady who once rented a room in the house, coils of frizzled tinsel gone gold with age, one silver star, a brief rope, undoubtedly dangerous, candy-colored light bulb. Excellent decorations as far as they go, which isn't far enough. My friend wants our tree to blaze like a Baptist window, droop with weighty snows of ornament. But we can't afford the made-in-Japan splendors at the five and dime. So we do what we've always done, sit for days at the kitchen table with scissors and crayons and stacks of colored paper. I make sketches, and my friend cuts them out. Lots of cats, fish too, because they're easy to draw, some apples, some watermelons, a few winged angels devised from saved-up sheets of Hershey bar tinfoil. We use safety pins to attach these creations to the tree. As a final touch, we sprinkle the branches with shredded cotton, picked in August for this purpose. My friend, surveying the effect, claps her hands together. Now, honest, buddy, doesn't it look good enough to eat? Queenie tries to eat an angel. After ribboning holly wreaths for all the front windows, our next project is the fashioning of family gifts. Tie-dye scarves for the ladies. For the men, a home-brewed lemon and licorice and aspirin syrup to be taken, quote, at the first symptoms of cold and after hunting, end quote. But when it comes time for making each other's, my friend and I separate to work secretly. I would like to buy her a pearl-handled knife, a radio, a whole pound of chocolate-covered cherries. We tasted some once, and she always swears, I could live on them, buddy. Lord, yes, I could. And that's not taking his name in vain. Instead, I am building her a kite. She would like to give me a bicycle. She said so on several million occasions. If only I could, buddy. It's bad enough in life. Something you want. But confound it, what gets my goat is not being able to give somebody something you want them to have. Only one of these days I will, buddy, locate you a bike. Don't ask how. Steal it, maybe. Instead, I'm fairly certain she is building me a kite. The same as last year and the year before. The year before that, we exchanged slingshots. All of which is fine by me. We are champion kite flyers who study the wind like sailors. My friend, more accomplished than I, can get a kite aloft when there isn't enough breeze to carry clouds. Christmas Eve afternoon, we scrape together a nickel and go to the butcher's to buy Queenie a traditional gift, a good gnawable beef bone. The bone, wrapped in funny paper, is placed high in the tree near the silver star. Queenie knows it's there. She squats at the foot of the tree, staring up in a trance of greed. When bedtime arrives, she refuses to budge. Her excitement is equaled by I kick the covers and turn my pillow as though it were a scorching summer's night. Somewhere a rooster crows falsely, for the sun is still on the other side of the world. Buddy, are you awake? It is my friend, calling from her room, which is next to mine. And an instant later, she is sitting on my bed holding a candle. Well, I can't sleep a hoot, she declares. My mind is jumping like a jackrabbit. Buddy, do you think Mrs. Roosevelt will serve our cake at dinner? We huddle in the bed and she squeezes my hand. I love you. Seems like you used to be so much smaller. I guess I hate to see you grow up. When you grow up, will we still be friends? I say always. I feel so bad, buddy. I wanted so bad to give you a bike. I tried to sell my cameo Papa gave me, buddy. She hesitates as though embarrassed. I made you another kite. Then I confess that I made her one too, and we laugh. The candle burns too short to hold. Out it goes, exposing the starlight. The stars spinning at the window like a visible caroling that slowly, slowly daybreak silences. Possibly we doze. But the beginnings of dawn splash us like cold water. We're up wide-eyed and wandering while we wait for the others to waken. Quite deliberately, my friend drops a kettle on the kitchen floor. I tap dance in front of closed doors. One by one, the household emerges, looking as though they'd love to kill us both, but it's Christmas, so they can't. First, a gorgeous breakfast, just everything you can imagine, from flapjacks and fried squirrel to hominy grits and honey in the comb, which puts everybody in a good mood except my friend and me. Frankly, we're so impatient to get at the presents we can't eat a mouthful. Well, I'm disappointed. Who wouldn't be, with socks and a Sunday school shirt, some handkerchiefs, a hand-me-down sweater, and a year subscription to a religious magazine for children, The Little Shepherd. It makes me boil, it really does. My friend has a better haul. A sack of satsumas, that's her best present. She is proudest, however, of a white wool shawl knitted by her married sister. And she says her favorite gift is the kite that I built her. And it is beautiful, though not as beautiful as the one she made me, which is blue and scattered with green and gold good conduct stars. Moreover, my name is painted on it, Buddy. Buddy, the wind is blowing. The wind is blowing. And nothing will do till we've run to a pasture below the house where Queenie has scooted to bury her bone, and where, a winter hence, Queenie will be buried too. There, plunging through the healthy, waist-high grass, we unreel our kites, feel them twitching at the string like skyfish as they swim into the wind. Satisfied, sun-warmed, we sprawl in the grass and peel satsumas and watch our kites cavort. Soon, I forget the socks and the hand-me-down sweater. I am as happy as if we'd already won the $50,000 grand prize in that coffee naming contest. My, how foolish I am, my friend cries, suddenly alert like a woman remembering too late she has biscuits in the oven. You know what I've always thought? She asks in a tone of discovery, and not smiling at me, but at a point beyond. I've always thought a body would have to be sick before they saw the Lord. And I imagined that when he came, it would be like looking at the Baptist window. Pretty as colored glass with the sun pouring through, such a shine, you don't know it's getting dark. And it's been a comfort to think of that shine, taking away all the spooky feeling. But I'll wager it never happens. I'll wager at the very end, a body realizes that the Lord has already shown himself, that things, as they are, her hand circles in a gesture that gathers clouds and kites and grass and Queenie pawing the earth over her bone, just as they've always seen was seeing him. As for me, I could leave the world with today in my eyes. This is our last Christmas together. Life separates us. Those who know best decide that I belong in a military school. So follows a miserable succession of bugle-blowing prisons, grim reveille-ridden summer camps. I have a new home, too, but it doesn't count. Home is where my friend is. And there I never go. And there she remains, puttering around the kitchen, alone with Queenie, then alone. Buddy, dear, she writes in her wild, hard-to-read script. Yesterday, Jim Macy's horse kicked Queenie bad. Be thankful she didn't feel much. I wrapped her in a fine and rode her in the buggy down to Simpson's pasture where she can be with all her bones. For a few Novembers, she continues to bake her fruitcake single-handed, not as many. And of course, she always sends me the best of the batch. Also, in every letter, she encloses a dime wadded in toilet paper. See a picture show and write me the story. But gradually in her letters, she tends to confuse me with her other friend, the buddy who died in the 1880s. More and more, 13ths are not the only days she spends in bed. A morning arrives in November, a leafless, birdless coming of winter morning, when she cannot rouse herself to exclaim, "Oh my, it's fruitcake weather." And when that happens, I know it. A message saying so merely confirms a piece of news some secret vein had already received, severing from me an irreplaceable part of myself, letting it loose like a kite on a broken string. That is why, walking across a school campus on this particular December morning, I keep searching the sky, as if I expected to see, rather like hearts, a lost pair of kites hurrying toward heaven. 15 years and I still do that every time. Every time. Okay, so one more thing of mine. And yes, for some reason it's cursey too, so I'm sorry. It's just clearly a theme this year. It's called Hideous Angels. And I started with a quote from a writer you may have heard of named William Shakespeare. Angels are bright still, though the brightest fell. It's from the Scottish tragedy, Act 4, Scene 3. Anyway, kids make ugly shit. It's adorable. Seriously, I don't have kids or participate in the raising of anybody else's, and yet if I could, I would furnish at least one room in my house exclusively with ugly shit kids made. Paintings that look like chemical spills, clothespin dragonflies, wonky solar systems, papier-mâché volcanoes, birdhouses FEMA would condemn, ashtrays that look like turds, and I don't even smoke anymore. I would enlarge their terrifying animal drawings and make wallpaper. I'd cut windows to a kid's notion of geometry and make clocks with numbers crowded in one corner. I would have furniture made to look like a 4-year-old's ideal of a perfect bed and flat chairs with too many legs. It would be glorious and beautiful and useless and a little terrifying, just like children, just like childhood. The aesthetics of children before they've reached the age of reason has been studied by wise and learned scholars, and there would seem to be a consensus that there is more that is good or bad in a better way than most of us will ever make again. Once all our houses are square with triangle roofs, and we can spell correctly and write without inverting our R's or trailing our S, we have lost, if not so much as we've gained, then at least something wonderful and forever. Parents are wired to find their own children and all their works fascinating. But for a brief time, this is objectively true. So appreciating kids' arts and crafts without keeping a kid clothed or fed isn't as crazy as it sounds. Why this stuff can be so aesthetically satisfying to me isn't to do with prodigies or savants. For a long time, at least when I was reading or drawing or writing, I was exceptional for my age. That is exactly the kind of accolade out of which one grows naturally. After a certain age, one may hear that phrase again, but now it's for being able to still touch one's toes or remembering the name of the sitting president. Looking through the stuff of mine that my father saved, I was touched that he kept so much. I was struck by just how nearly good, objectively and not for my age, it all was, without actually being at all interesting. Drawings, stories, book reports, it was none of it unstudied or spontaneous. I could see immediately the books and the shows from which I drew, how hard I'd worked at making everything as much like my models as I could. Admirable, but not interesting. Ironically, the very thing my father saw in all my art, namely the effort, the thing that made him think it worth preserving, was the very thing that makes nearly none of it now worth keeping. Whereas a little bird in colored pencil, handed me one day by the 6-year-old son of a coworker at my desk, I have secretly kept ever since. I still take it out occasionally to study and admire. No actual bird was ever colored so, had disproportionately large purple feet, or both eyes on the same side of its tiny head, and nearly no real bird was ever so beautiful. I went to elementary school so long ago that teachers were actually supplied by the taxpayers with construction paper. Imagine that. Safety scissors, mother's comfort and artist's bane. Glue pots, pencils, paints appeared as a matter of course for projects large and small. True, our textbooks were ancient and not of the best. In the late 60s, we were still learning to read from a Dick and Jane dressed in sturdy Depression-era leather shoes and those inelastic wool socks that pulled at the ankle. Might as well have been depicted in ruffs and farthingales. That said, there was then an abundance in public education, the like of which we are unlikely to ever see again. Music instruction, art, library books, paper actually to burn, and popsicle sticks enough to reproduce the Abbey of Mont Saint-Michel at a third scale, if anyone in Highland Elementary had ever heard of Mont Saint-Michel, which they had not. We felt bad for the kids who didn't go to public school, which happened even then. We understood that their parents were God-struck maniacs without televisions, who kept their car radios turned to the Screaming Preacher channel and dressed their girls like Granny in the Tweety Bird cartoons. Little House on the Prairie, the TV hit, came a little later in 1974 and made gingham cool for the preteen set. This was back before John Birchers were packed onto the Supreme Court, and suddenly it was okay for my property taxes to pay the tuition of some church basement Baptist kindergarten. You know, the kind of non-public school where the kiddies learn that Jesus was not a Jew and America is God's kingdom. Back then, if you wanted to keep your children down on the farm, as it were, you had to pay the preacher's not-so-secret mistress yourself to teach the little ones that only communists read comic books and listen to those colored dance records. The kids in public schools, we were the lucky ones. We had more stuff, including opportunities and even ideas. We weren't taught conformity, we were, but it was less draconian, if not subtle. For example, hand turkeys. I now think that one of the ways kids unlearn what makes their art interesting and individual is when they are taught to all make the same thing the same way on the same day. Some of it is good and necessary. You want your kid to make upper and lower case look like everybody else's upper and lower case. You want your kid to sing in tune, if possible, and to take turns and spell. I don't know, but maybe every parent secretly wants their kids to not go the same direction in the dance recital because, come on, isn't that the best? And I should think everybody wants their kids to bring home a hen turkey in November, but maybe the wise ones want it to look a little weird, no? You trace the fingers of your non-dominant hand with a crayon or a marker. Back in my day, there was a residual distrust of the sinister, so I'm pretty sure we all had to make our turkeys face right. Lessons on lessons. Some people would be made to then cut your handprint out and stick the outline on another piece of paper. Maybe it was just drawn over on the same paper. Different methods, similar results. The outline gave you the shape of the turkeys. Fingers were the feather, the thumb, the neck, and the head, feet added under. The result was then colored, decorated, decked in all the turkey's native glory. If the teacher was uptight, the browns had to be brown. Those of a more liberal inclination allowed for not just yellows and reds, but purples, pinks, blues, all of which I could point out are present in reality when the light falls, right? I remember my own turkey as sadly traditionalist in both its coloration and shape. The kind of thing you would expect in a recognizable hand turkey, the kind of bird that would please a teacher and not need explanation at home. Oh, what a good turkey. I also remember a few peacocks sneaking into the flock, maybe a couple of dinosaurs. Not everybody stayed inside the lines. I very much did. I was all about being good then. It's a little disappointing to think how much that mattered to me once, but give the kid a break. I suspect he already sensed he was going to disappoint elsewhere someday, and not just his spelling. We also cut out pilgrim hats, historically regrettable but easy shapes, hat, headband, buckle. We made flags for anything patriotic, jack-o'-lanterns, stars, and Santa hats for Christmas. Later we made planets, and I made a paper mache triceratops so massive that it broke in half getting it into my mother's tiny car to ride to school. Grim ride, bad day. I said above that I would be into decorating a whole room with this sort of thing, and I would want anything I made in it except maybe the broken dinosaur. That thing was impressive, and it was not anatomically correct, even before the masking tape surgery that put its head awkwardly back on. Ambition, that's what it was, but also sadly mud-colored and boxy. It was made with actual boxes, after all. Later, it made a lovely blaze on the burn pile. I remember that. That was exciting. It was too big to keep in my room if we ever wanted to get to the closet again. And it was sad to see after the accident anyway, badly balanced and always tipping forward onto its face. Poor beast. It was time. Of all the things I made as a child, the only one that survived in any public way and for many years was one hideous angel. I should mention that we were angel people. In my experience, families are either angel people or star people. Star people allowed for some variation from the straight up 5-point glass star, pardon me, to stars with halos, to stars with actual lights. I would include abstract tree topper families in with the star people simply because the business of diminishing globes ending in a sharp point always suggested a star as the point of departure, at least to me. Yes, the onion roofs of Russian churches and the Kremlin also come to mind, but really, I think those toppers were more to do with Bethlehem's one famous traffic signal than with inverted icicles or snow of any sort. Maybe I'm wrong. We were angel people, what do I know? One year, our angel lost her head. Happens. She was old. I think she also lost a hand, at least one hand. Glue was applied, but she was never right again. With all the confidence of already artistic boy, I determined to make her replacement. Have I mentioned the stunning variety of uses to which we then put the cardboard tubes out of paper towels and toilet rolls. Rilke said, "Every angel is terrifying." Mine was. She was beautiful. This is her story. Angel hair. Anyone else remember angel hair? It was spun clouds of fiberglass thread. It was pretty and pretty deadly. And real tinsel, remember that? Tinsel, very thin metal then. Icicles too. And that stuff would actually cut you and potentially kill your cat. And we all used it, and we all thought it was just lovely. Asbestos snow, actual asbestos. Styrofoam was big then too. Don't see a lot of that anymore, which I'm sure is a good thing. For years, my dad got tiny settlement checks as part of a big asbestosis case. Factory work, not snow inhalation. One likes to think we are learning, but in my childhood, all but the manufacturers were largely unaware of everything that could kill us. People smoked everywhere. We decorated cakes with silver BBs and we ate them. And no one knew or much cared what they were made from, or that their only actual flavor was hard. Pipe cleaners had made a comeback too, even as actual pipes were disappearing. Bristled wires in various fun colors. We used pipe cleaners for everything. So flexible. Any art supply, any discount store back in the day, there were styrofoam balls big as your head and small enough they had to be bagged, and every size in such abundance that there were tall wire cages and big bins to keep the stuff from drifting down the aisles. Styrofoam wreaths, styrofoam Santas, styrofoam reindeers and trees. We painted it, stuck things into it. We even thought it looked good naked. Just styrofoam snowballs piled up like Civil War ordnance. My angel had angel hair, sort of an updo with a red ribbon. Red. Christmas made perfect sense. Cotton balls would have been a safer choice, but they wouldn't have looked right. They would have looked more colonial and less ethereal. She had a bow at her throat, too. Same red ribbon. It was a motif. Need I point out that all true Christmas angels are girls, despite so many boy angel names in the text? Weren't quite ready yet for Christmas drag, and one needed a full skirt under which to shove the top branch. Almost goes without saying that her body was a toilet paper tube, the basic building block of juvenile American engineering before Lego. Her robes were plain white paper cone, white paper wings, white pipe cleaner arms with loop hands folded in prayer. Gold pipe cleaner halo, of course. Her head was a styrofoam ball of just slightly too big a size. I painted her face on. Arched rather than arched eyebrows. Closed eyes represented by rick-rack lashes, two-dot nose, and a bold red lip to match her ribbons. If there was more of Dolly's Jolene than the Evangel about her, that was for the adults to keep to themselves. Among the many flaws which escaped my attention her inaugural Christmas, I would note that the difference between treated and untreated styrofoam, the former had a flat, glossy surface, the latter did not. Guess which one I put paint on? This meant that the cosmetic details of her mug quickly ate into the surface a bit, giving her a weirdly skeletal look. My model for making my angel was, after all, not an angel, but the ghosts we had made in school for Halloween. Thus, the inspiration of the decorative ribbons to indicate the change of holiday. Red, Christmas, not blood. Who said anything about a garrote? Anyway, I think she had buttons too. Not a ghost, it's a dress. See? Buttons in the front where you could see them just like dresses. Hers was a fragile beauty at the best of times. Her face continued to fall in over time. Bad posture plagued her all her life, and she often looked drunk. Presumably the sway of the Holy Spirit rather than the influence of strong spirits. Whatever one puts on top of an actual as opposed to an artificial tree is subject to the bend of the branch. Unlike the commercially produced angels and stars, there really wasn't much thought given to grip or balance. And so her many attempts to end her own life, poor dear, up she went, down she came, repeatedly. So many interventions. So maybe she was drunk. Sad, certainly. And remember, all the brightest angels fell. If you haven't tripped to the fact yet, yes, my angel went onto the top of the tree. It could be argued that perfectly good parents might have thanked their son and even praised his effort without then feeling the need to place this particular project on the family Christmas tree. Further, having done so once, with the best intentions in the world, they might then have contrived to lose the thing before Christmas rolled around again, no questions asked. No one would fault the parent employing such stratagems to spare the general discomfort of visitors. But no. Until today, in my own adolescence, when I could not look at that, by then bedraggled and sadly crippled thing again, and took her down, my angel stayed. I think I tried to throw her away. Teenagers are beastly. Rescued from the trash, she lived for some time in semi-retirement on a lower branch, and then on the end table, until one night she was finally done away with in the dark of night, much to my parents' grief and fury. Grief and fury were kind of the go-to responses to me in my teens. I get it. It would be years before I understood the value of what I had discarded in embarrassment. As precious as all this may sound, you should know that ours was never a family immune to sarcasm or quick to let go of an inside joke. You made a funny-looking ashtray at summer camp. We laughed at the ashtray and kept it forever. Didn't mean such objects were unloved. Quite the contrary. Every lopsided pincushion, every wonky clay mug, if one of us made a thing, the thing stayed, even when we laughed at it, because we laughed at nearly everything. They kept my angel because they loved her, faults and all. Hideous as she actually was, with all the jokes about angels working the corner and walking the stroll and all looking better in the dark. She was loved for who she was, and not just because, so to speak, she came home on my arm. Our house was nearly as full of strays as the yard and the barn. Kids, old people, animals, junk. None of us, none of them, none of it need be perfect to be welcome. Useless and unlovely were never reasons not to be sat right out front where everybody could see. Animate and not, it was all of it life, and that was and is never less than messy. Some dogs can only run sideways. Some old friends lose the thread or fart when they walk. Some chairs tip. Some angels are ugly. If it wasn't funny, you'd cry, wouldn't you? Cry if you have to. There's a lot of yard if you need privacy and room to walk in. Look around you, though. Have you ever seen the like? That cat is not right. The feet on that baby, she's going to be a runner. Just look at Aunt Ruth, will you? New glasses make her eyes look the size of pie plates. If Uncle Buster's pants rode up any higher, that belt would be a necktie. Red's a funny bastard, isn't he? See that angel? Brad made it. What do you think of her bow tie? He don't like it anymore, but I think she looks great. Riding a little low on her left side now, but she's hanging on. See that angel? It is in the nature of angels to be largely unseen. Every actual appearance is presumably intended to startle. There is some justice then in having made, pardon me, there is some justice then in having made an unmade angel better loved than looking. Chesterton said somewhere that angels could fly because they took themselves so lightly. Never meant to linger, but then neither is childhood. Neither are we. See that angel? Thank you. Sometimes choked up is the same as choking. Thank you all for coming. Lovely to see you all. We'll see you next year. Feel free to buy something or don't, but eat a cookie before you go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
These are your drawings?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, right.
Goodbye.
Okay.